This is the BBC.
One of my biggest regrets is Calvin Harris sent me a demo, and anyway, I don't remember getting it, and he still holds the grudge because I didn't get back to him. And when I've had dinner with him, he's like, "Oh, mate, I sent you my demo, and you didn't even reply." And I'm like, "Oh no, of all the ones not to get and react to,
3,
1.
Vintage.
Hi, I'm Dave Pearce, and I was at Radio 1 from 1995 to 2008. When I was a kid, I was an avid radio listener, and I was all over the dial. But the shows that I used to go to for Radio 1, being sort of musically obsessive, I guess, were two shows, one that I think everyone used to listen to, which was the Top 40, which was just essential listening for the whole nation. And you had to listen to that and the whole countdown. And it was actually really, really exciting. And we used to have these things called cassettes in those days. And so you used to sit there, and I'm sure everyone's told you the story, and basically edit Radio 1 out and make your own tape with all the great tracks in, and then you'd go to school, and then someone had got the whole show, or and you'd swap tapes and stuff like that. So that was great. And I always dreamt of maybe one day doing that show, which I did eventually do. And then the other one, fun enough, was more sort of music specialist, which was called Round Table. And what I liked about that, I remember at one point Andy Peebles was hosting it, and basically what it was kind of a review of the week's new releases. And I just thought it was fascinating. I mean, I read all the music magazines, but actually to have a space where people were talking about music, analysing the new records, also kind of, saying whether they thought they were going to do well or not. It was a real insight for me. And years later, I went on to run record labels and get very heavily involved in the record industry as well as radio. And I think that was a really important educational moment for me musically, for just having that analysis of the music. And a lot of it was by people in the industry, famous singers and stuff like that. And I wanted to take that back into Radio 1. So when I was doing Drive Time, I tried to reinvent it and bring it back into Radio 1. And we did a thing called Pucker or Pants. So it was a bit more of a cheeky version. It was like, this is either a really crap record or a good record. So we were a bit brutal with it. And, we had like famous artists of the day on reviewing the records, and punters as well. I wanted to bring the audience in. So we'd have listeners on the phone, and I really enjoyed doing that. I remember obviously it's such a milestone in my life, getting the gig at Radio 1. I was actually doing the breakfast show on a London radio station, it was quite a cool radio station, and I was very settled there. And, we had this call and this conversation about going to Radio 1. I was like, oh my God, are you kidding? That's really, really exciting. And it all happened pretty quickly in the end. And, I think it was kind of shock and disbelief. And I knew it would change my life because, it was a big step. I'd worked in dance music all my life. I'd never, ever gone into the pop arena. And, they wanted me to come in and do a mainstream show, which I'd never done before. Always done dance music. So, that was a real game changer for me, and quite risky. There was a sort of element of, where's this going to go? And I turned down earlier in my career opportunities to do mainstream programming on local stations, including other breakfast shows and stuff. So, yeah, it was a real sort of game changer for me. Of course, everyone imagines that, your first day is at Radio 1 going to be very showbiz and glamorous. And in many ways it was, because you were sort of dealing with the press and the announcement that I was coming along. The main announcement was Chris Evans, obviously. We were all starting on the same day, and it was about bringing new people and new talent into the radio station. So I had to resign after my show on this London radio station. It was awful. I felt so bad about it, and came to Radio 1, met the one of the management at the time, who was called Trevor Dan, who was a great guy. There was Matthew Benson and Trevor Dan running it. And so Trevor said, right, let's get started then. Go and get yourself a desk. Go and see this guy, and he'll set you up, and, we'll get you a computer, and you can start working on stuff. And so I went to to see this guy, and I said, oh, hi, I'm Dave Pearce. Trevor sent me to get my desk, and, I'm here. And the guy went, well, I have no idea who the hell you are. So that was the great kind of welcome. I thought, oh no, but yeah, it was amazing. And then of course the very first day that I joined, actually went on air doing the early breakfast show, was the launch of Chris Evans. So the kind of whole UK media was in the studios. It was a big buzz, and I'd worked with Chris Evans previously on GLR. So we kind of knew each other. And what was lovely in those early days is he's a real workaholic. He used to come in really, really early and kind of write a lot of the ideas for a show in my studio. So we would like have a bit of banter and he'd be, writing things for a show. So we built a really close bond and he really bigged me up on air, which was really nice. And so what was good is we managed to achieve, a really high audience very, very quickly. And the show really took off. But, I think partly that's due to the fact that he kept back referencing us on The Breakfast Show, which was really cool. I do remember one day, though, when he broke all the BBC rules and brought his own toaster into the studio, which, of course, I think, don't know if it would catch fire, but it caused a major, what would be considered as a major incident. I'm not sure whether they had to wear their little luminous jackets at the end of it, but we were all severely told off after that just because you're on early in the morning doesn't mean you get away with murder. So what was interesting in my journey at Radio 1 is that I'd come from dance music, but then I'd gone into mainstream kind of, it was a very entertainment-based show and very much, pop music. And, I decided to really embrace it. So I went and had all the boy bands on, got to know them, hung out with them. I really, really enjoyed it. They were great. And a lot of the Britpop artists and all that. So I really, totally embraced this new world. And I was very honoured to be offered the Drive Time show on Radio 1, which is a very prestigious slot, and slightly nervous because it's a big commitment. But, we had a lot of fun doing that show. I had amazing teams around me, which I think is really, really important. And I felt very relaxed on it. We just really freestyled and they were very open to ideas and, we tried to change it up. But I did want to bring my dance music into it. So I sneaked it in. So we used to have a featured record of the day, which for me was always dance music. I was going, oh, God, here he goes again, another dance record. Why don't you play something else? But I was like, no, this is me giving a chance to have my music played at a peak time, to a mass audience. I think it was like 4.5 million or something a day. So we did that. And then also we'd created a thing called The Mix at 6. And so that was another great way of getting dance music on at the end of the day. And it was nice because it was, either people that had come home from school, people in the gym, having a workout, people on the way back from work. And we used to get listeners to sort of ring in as well and do shout-outs and tell us what they were doing. So it was a kind of continuation of what I was doing with dance anthems, but, it was, a way of bringing dance music into daytime radio. I had the idea for dance anthems for quite a while because I knew that if you looked at Sunday night scheduling on television and radio, it was kind of like everyone was just giving up, and you had the top 40 with this massive audience. And then Radio 1 share used to just dive off the scale. It just all went. Everyone switched off. They put a documentary on right after. Everyone's all excited about the number one. Then it was like, okay, here's this program. We didn't know where to put it, so we've got that on. And it was, and television was all, I don't know, it's horrible dissing them, but, Antiques Roadshow or some religious slot. There was nothing for young people. It was all a bit dull. And I also knew in those days that in the clubland, everyone was living for the weekend. And in those days, people would go out clubbing, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. In Scotland and Northern Ireland, they were still going out on Sunday. So I thought, what about doing a show that kind of wraps up the weekend? And it's kind of a reflection of what you've been doing out and about. So it has a kind of big lifestyle element to it, but also plays classic records and then future anthems, which you hope are then going to go on and become big records. And, that's the real test, I think, of your music credentials is, you're going to pick a record and you're going to say, this is going to be really big. And you hope that it is, and it then becomes an anthem. And, obviously, I'm still playing a lot of those records nearly 20 years later because they became anthems. So I'm, really pleased with that legacy. And I think that music has always been so important to me. And one of the interesting things with the advent of digital technology, which kind of happened during the period that I was on Radio 1, is it enabled people to make music at home much easier than it had ever been before. I mean, really before that, you had to really go in a little, even if it was a 16-track or some kind of 8-track setup, you had to have some kind of studio. But now you could make records on your computer at home. And I knew that lots of people were doing that. And, that's clearly where the next generation of talent is going to come through. So we did create a bedroom producer slot to encourage people to send in stuff, which, again, was really, really popular. We had a great reaction to it. And whenever we do, I remember talking to John Peel about this. We used to, whenever you opened up the opportunity for people to access Radio 1's airwaves with new music that they were, which wasn't signed, that was just coming through, the reaction, the volume of the stuff you got was so phenomenal. I remember in the early days, I don't know if when you see the postman out with those big sacks, we literally had GPO post sacks full of tracks and tapes and CDs or whatever format they were on, and which was great because we had to listen to it all. So what I used to do is, because I was DJing all the time, I used to take all the stuff in the car, because I had a driver that we had to go to Manchester or somewhere, and we would just listen to all this stuff on the way. So you have nothing else to do in a car. So, and I think that's kind of was John's ethos as well. But you felt a real pressure to listen to it. One of my biggest regrets is Calvin Harris sent me a demo, and anyway, I don't remember getting it, and he still holds the grudge because I didn't get back to him. And when I've had dinner with him, he's like, "Oh, mate, I sent you my demo and you didn't even reply." And I'm like, "Oh no!" Of all the ones not to get and react to, There's so many amazing tracks that came through Dance Anthems. So I think that one of my all-time favourite records that still gives me goosebumps, I know it sounds a bit crazy to play because I've been playing it for about 20 years, is Delirium Silence. And what was interesting about that record was, in its original form, Radio 1 didn't really like it. And we had a great head of music, but he was a bit picky. And I kept saying to him, "Oh, mate, this is a number one record. We've got to get on this track." And the record company kept doing these edits and stuff, and he kept rejecting them. So me and a guy called Daniel, who worked on my show, we did our own edit and presented. So it wasn't even our record, and we took it in anyway. And then they were like, "Oh, yeah, it's good." So it went on the playlist, and of course it went to number one. So, that was a really good one. I think records like, that real dance anthem records are things like Darude, Sandstorm, Zombie Nation, and Faithless Insomnia. They were all records that we kind of hammered on the show. And I always had a big kind of trance leaning really in what I was doing, but that became the pop music of the time, or the popular clubbing music, and I'm glad here I am, I'm still doing like sort of classic sets, playing those records. I think they were so well produced at that time, so there were loads of great records. In terms of playing new music first, it's always really hard after a long period of time to be exactly sure, but one record I do remember helping launch the career of was Faithless, and I was asked to sit in for Pete Tong. It was right at the very beginning, and basically what happened is that Pete would have all these record companies send him what were called acetates of new tracks they were going to put out. So they were like the only copy, and so this sackload of stuff arrived to do the show. You can imagine it's like, oh, there goes my day. Got to listen to them all, and I found this record with just a bit of scrawled writing on it from this thing called Faithless. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a bit different. And so it was called Salva Mia, and I played it on the show. And in those days, it was, people used to ring in rather than emailing and text. I think email had been invented, but it was anyway, everyone was going nuts for it. So I thought, we're on to a winner here. And, Faithless, what can I say? They've gone from strength to strength. But that was a pivotal moment, really. Radio 1 was always really good at doing what they call OBs, outside broadcasts, and taking the show out. So one of the things that I actually did create on the station was these Radio 1 dance parties. And the idea of that is I was asked to do the Radio 1 Roadshow, which was a lot of fun, and I'm sure everyone's spoken about how good that was. But what I noticed was, had this amazing stage and all these vehicles, and then at night they weren't being used. And I was like, could we possibly use this at night and put on dance events on beaches? And, I thought they'd say no, but I sort of got very pally with the marketing department at Radio 1, and they were like, actually, that's a really good idea. And this is slightly in the days before too many rules and regulations, so it was a bit easier to do. Councils were a bit more open for doing things and stuff. And so that's what we did. We did the very first one in Bournemouth. No idea how many people were going to turn up. We used to broadcast it live, and I think it was Alistair Whitehead or someone like that on the very first show. And suddenly there's like 12,000 people there. And then the next one, there's 25,000 people. And then we up the act. So I've got Paul Van Dyke, Carl Cox, Boy George, all these people playing for free. And this was a great gateway for a lot of young people because there was no age restriction on it. You could be with your mum and dad, you could be 14, 15. And a lot of people say to me that went to those events, that was the first time they'd seen a full stage dance event. So that was really, really, an amazing thing to do. And, there was a couple of really significant dance parties that I did. One was the Millennium, which was a really exciting night for all of us because nobody knew what was going to happen to technology and there was on that night, because they thought all computers would break down, everything would break down. And we were going to do this big show from Glasgow for 20,000 people. It's going to be broadcast live on Radio 1 and around the world. And, it's just me and some turntables and this crowd. And so what the BBC engineers did is they're like, well, okay, what's digital, what's analog? So I had record decks, we had mini discs, we had CDs, we had every conceivable way of playing music, all like this great long setup, because they were like, nobody actually knows what's going to happen. And anyway, of course, it was all absolutely fine at the end of the day. I do remember about a minute to midnight on what was, one of the great moments of so hyped as being, this great historical moment of our lives going into the millennium. The chief of police coming on stage saying, "Oh, you've got to calm the crowd down a bit." I'm like, "Sorry, you asked me to calm the crowd down a bit. 1 minute to midnight, live on air, and in what's supposed to be the biggest party of our lifetime." So I told him we could talk about it afterwards. So he didn't take us off there. But it was real pressure also picking what record you play at midnight. What are you going to play at the very beginning of the millennium on Radio 1? That, and being the first voice of the millennium on Radio 1. So I thought, I had to play something represented probably the finest pop act and a record with a great message in it. So I mixed into a mix of dance music, the Beatles' "All You Need Is Love," because I just thought that was such a poignant message that really all you need is love, and then we'll see our way through. Let's have no more wars, we hoped, and let's give everyone that positive message to remember. So I remember spending weeks trying to work out what to play, but it was a goosebump moment. Yeah, definitely. One of the great things about doing dance anthems and the dance parties was it enabled me to get various guest DJs to come on the show and often get their first break in the UK being played on Radio 1. For a European DJ was an amazing thing. And amongst the people that got their first sessions was Tiesto, who was on a tiny little label. He was just starting out, and we put him on a dance anthem show live from Foundation in Newcastle. And that was his very first show. And there he is in Vegas now, rocking his residency and everything. But that's kind of where it started in the UK for him. Because we had a massive, at its peak, we had 1.75 million listeners on that. You could break records. That the impact of those kind of shows meant that, I could take a record from Holland, like, Ferry Corsten or something like that, who was an unknown artist, sent me his tracks. We'd play it on Radio 1, they'd get signed, and then they were a hit, How cool is that? It was really good. Some of them are still great. Sometimes I see these guys, now. So I see Armin van Buuren or whatever in America, and he's like, "Oh, yes, you helped break me," And other people, they seem to have forgotten when you're, saying, "Oh, can you sort me out with a backstage pass?" or whatever. They seem to have forgotten. But, it was great.